Hey everybody, welcome to the Vito x DINO podcast. I'm Vito Delsante. That guy's Dean Haspiel.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jen, can you get me a fork, please? Thank you.
Dean, who's your guest behind you?
Bro, this is Kima. Kima is one of two cats. Thank you very much. I got a fork. Um, is one of two cats that live with me, and she's adorable. And they have these cat cafes now. I
Yeah,
don't know, they have them in Pennsylvania or wait, Sean, where you dialing in from? What country?
South Africa.
South Africa, Johannesburg.
Oh my God. Do they have cat cafes in South Africa?
I know of one where they have like a lot of cats and you can adopt them if you want.
So I've had my last two cats are adopted from cat cafes. And the idea is you go to this space, there's 100 cats, and some are like ignoring you, some are like voguing and dancing around you and being all sexy. Some come lay in your lap just to be like, dude, just take me away right now. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens. And you
Yeah,
fall in
That's
love.
cool.
so the
That's super
cat's
cool.
out of the bag. Our guest this week is my good brother, my little brother, whose birthday's tomorrow. Uh, that's
It
why
is.
that's why I wanted to have him on because like I never get a chance to talk to him, for his birthday. So I figured let's do it like this. He is the co-creator of Stray and the current artist on Challengers of the Unknown from DC Comics. Mr. Sean Izaakse, say hello.
Hi.
He's down. He's in, like I said, he's in South Africa. So I didn't know about cat cafes, but I know you have safaris. So
We do, and we have cat cafes. But I've never been on a safari ever.
yeah, Michelle keeps saying we go there. She's making you take her.
Oh my God, you said
That's
safari?
probably
I
the
haven't thought of safari since like Abbott and Costello or something.
dude, that the only reason I'll end up going on a safari is if I have to take someone else to go. Because like usually when you stay somewhere, like you don't do the touristy stuff, but then people come over and they do the touristy stuff, and you're like, oh, I haven't done this, even though I've lived here my whole life.
What did we
That's one of
do?
those situations.
So the first time Sean ever came to America, he came for New York Comic Con when Stray debuted.
2014.
I think it was actually not the first issue, but like we had a special sketch cover issue just to preview it and stuff. Sean, what was the first thing we did when you got off the plane?
What was the first thing we did?
We took him to White Castle, Dean.
No, it was that. No, that wasn't the first thing. That we did in the evening. That we did in the evening. Um, and then I remember I said I wanted to have like a New York pizza slice, and then you ordered a pizza for us that was actually pretty horrible. And it arrived, and I was like, "Is this it? Is this all the stuff people rave about?" But it's probably good that we did that then and not had the pizza we had when I was leaving because I would have been obese by the time I left because that was. But I did have White
That's
Castle, and you were like, no, 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 you don't eat that. It's gonna mess you up. And I'm like, no, I'm sure it's fine. And I had the freaking stomach pains, and I was on the toilet the next day so much. Like, oof.
so Nick Purpura, who you used to work with at JHU Comics,
Right. Mhm.
used to live on, I think he doesn't live there anymore, but used to have a place on Prince Street in
Yes.
Soho, basically, right?
Mhm.
And so just the other night, I went over there and there's this amazing pizza place that people stand online for. In fact,
Yeah,
I
downstairs.
have one on my corner. But anyway, the Prince Street Pizza, whatever it's called. And I'm not really a pepperoni pizza guy, right? Because it gives me agita or something, like. But they have a special kind of pepperoni where it looks like red cups of lava that have been burnt,
Oh, yeah.
holding like a cup of oil in each one, like little
They,
flowers,
they
but
curl
they're
up.
made of pepperoni meat,
Mhm.
and they've
Okay.
been cooked like in the oven. They've been burnt. The tips have been crisped, to give it kind of like this caramelization. It is so good. It's absurd. It should be illegal, I think. Anyway, I stood online for pizza, which is one of my no-nos. I don't stand online for nothing. Okay, that's why I never went to clubs. I remember going to get invited. I was on the VIP list to see my friends play at Nell's back in the day. I think on 14th Street, which was a famous
Yeah.
club. I remember getting there. He's like, "Yeah, get online." I'm like, "Bye, see ya."
You're like, nah,
Anyway,
my time is precious. I'm not gonna stand there waiting for things.
hell no, man. I mean, and I knew that as a youngster, but Sean, like then he took you to White Castle. That's not good either, man. Those burgers aren't good. That's
I'll
trash.
blame it. I'll blame it on TV and movies, man. That's the movies make stuff look so good, and I'm like, well, I'm just curious, and then the instant regret happened
Oh
afterwards.
yeah. Yeah, then it's welcome to New York. The instant regret.
Yeah.
That's
There
your
we go.
welcome to New York.
There's
But I'm trying to
nothing.
remember when I met you, Sean. I feel like we bumped into each other at New York Comic Con. But was it? You said 2013 is when you first came.
No, it was 2014.
Yeah, year
2014.
after Sadie was born.
So maybe
Yeah,
that's when I met you too, for like a minute or two. You
for
know?
like a minute or two, and then the next time I came, I went to Baltimore. I didn't go to New York again after that.
Right.
And Baltimore was in 2019.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't come to America a lot.
No, the plane tickets are so expensive, man. It's so
Yeah.
expensive. It's really difficult for me to like get the cash together when I've got a lot of other expenses and stuff. So I haven't been to a lot of cons overseas. I've been to New York once, Baltimore once, Dublin once, and that's basically it.
Mm. All
I
right.
remember.
Well,
I feel like when he first came in 2014, I feel like you had to lay over in Egypt or something like that.
No, it was Abu Dhabi.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah,
imagine.
layovers are terrible. And then when I went to Baltimore on the way back, I did a layover again in Abu Dhabi, and I was there for like 6 hours.
God.
Mm.
well, I mean, that would be fine if you can go hang out for a little while in the place that you're waiting at. But sometimes they don't make it easy enough to be able to pull that off. So you really are hanging out in an airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, you literally just found a spot and I slept for 6 hours in an airport. Yeah,
Right.
that's basically
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right. But you somehow were able to invade America with your talent.
I mean, I had help.
So let's talk about your origins, right? Or did you have? Where'd you want to start, Vito?
Well, yeah. Let's talk about. It's funny because Sean had. When I met Sean, I met him through DeviantArt, and we just clicked on a kind of primal note where we both just like, oh, you like Nightwing? I like Nightwing. Oh, you like Aquaman? I like Aquaman. That kind of thing, like. And I feel like those two characters were very prominent in our early discussions, and I remember after a while, after we had started working together and stuff, Sean had told me about being in touch with Marvel before he ever actually worked with Marvel. You want to talk about that for a little bit, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, like all of that stuff is sort of like a blur. Like I remember the things that happened, but I don't remember in which order they happened, if that makes sense. So,
Sure.
so I lost my job in 2010, and I was like, okay, well, this is the universe telling me that I need to, not just settle for any job and a job that I'm not enjoying, and need to make things happen. And pretty much from there, the first year, I think I did the first 13 months was rough. It was like I wasn't making any money. I was selling all my stuff. I was drawing really dodgy things for money. There was a couple of questionable Huntress and Wonder Woman pictures that people asked for. And then I did.
Sean, I've been there, man. I've been there. I was just going through a file cabinet from years ago with these porn magazines that I did drawings for. No judgment at all, right? It's fine. No. But I was like, that's not really what I want to be doing,
No, exactly.
I want to draw men wearing costumes beating each other up.
Yeah. But I mean, some of the greats come from those old like porn comics. I mean, Adam Hughes did some stuff at one point.
For Penthouse Comics.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Kevin Maguire that did any. Someone else did some. So you do what you do to get by, and during the course of those 13 months, one of the jobs I did was for a online comic series called Gutters, where they make fun of things in comics.
Yeah, that was I know those guys too, like off the top of my head. I can't think of their names, but I remember that was a very like a PvP style
kind of stuff.
by Scott
Yeah.
Kurtz. Like that was a very big uh, digital comic at the time. So yeah, I remember the Gutters.
Yeah, but I only did they. I mean, they didn't pay too bad for me at the time. I think I got 125 dollars a page, and I did 2 pages for them. One was when Bucky was when Steve had come back to being Captain America, and Bucky had to pass the shield back, and the page was Bucky passing the shield to Steve, but it wasn't the real shield; it was a cake. Yeah.
It's out of your time because when you think about it, they even have TV
And
shows
the
now
script,
that is it cake?
yeah, it was a cake that in the shape of the shield, and Steve was like, kind of runs his finger on it, and he's like, "This is icing. Like, where are you going?" And then Bucky runs off with the real shield, kind of thing. The one I did was when Johnny Storm died, and it basically ends with him going to heaven and meeting Uncle Ben. Um, yeah, it was just those two. I
Wait.
can't
Time out.
remember
Time
who the
out.
editor was
Wait.
on.
Time out. Johnny
Yeah.
Storm meeting Uncle Ben.
Yeah, It was when Johnny Storm died for some reason. And I can't remember
You mean Uncle
what
Ben from
happened.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, like you met him in heaven. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how's the context? Like, why would he? It must have been a random passing.
So the idea of the Gutters comic book, and Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that it was everything that happened in between issues, like, and I think Johnny died during Mark Wade's run.
No, he died
Oh, it was
during
Ben. It was Ben that
Hickman's
died.
run. I think Hickman's run.
Right. So the idea was that he died, and before going to the negative zone, or during while he was in the negative zone, he died. He goes to heaven, and then Sean did the story that bridged
Oh,
that.
I didn't realize. Oh, that's cool. But then somehow he runs across the one character that has never. Well, that's not true. You could technically say Gwen Stacy, who's been a clone, never truly came back. So there's only two characters in Marvel that have stayed dead: Uncle Ben, and let's just say Gwen Stacy, even though they tried to figure out how to play that card
Yeah.
a bunch of times. So
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
So I did those two, and I can't remember who the editor was at the time, but basically, you end up putting a pin in that, and then I go off and I end up drawing all sorts of things. I end up doing storyboards for ad agencies and whatnot. And uh, what else did I draw then? I can't remember at what point I started Stray stuff.
It was after
Doing,
Pathfinder.
it was after Pathfinder. Oh, okay, cool. So we'll say I did a lot of ad agency stuff and whatnot, and then a certain amount of time passes, and the editor from the Gutters ended up getting work at Dynamite. And also during that time, I had sent Marvel some samples of mine, and I'd gotten, uh, sort of critiques back on what I needed to do. So like it was one of those things where like, oh, don't draw the characters so close to take up the whole frame because you're scared of drawing backgrounds, kind of thing. So I was like, oh, okay, they could see that. Okay, well that's fine. So I went and I worked on that. And then the editor on Gutters got work at Dynamite, and I just pretty much got an email one day being like, "Hey, do you want to try out for a book?" So I tried out for the Dresden Files, but the IP holder and creator didn't like the style that I did the stuff in, so that didn't happen. And then pretty much like a week or two after that, I think the editor sent me Pathfinder. He's like, "Hey, do you want to try for this Pathfinder book?" And I was like, "Well, I play Pathfinder, like I do, Dungeons and Dragons and role playing games and all that stuff. So yeah, I'd like to try that." So I, kind of did some of the character drawings and all that, and I ended up getting that book for a few issues. And so, that kind of helped because I got a lot of practice in like just storytelling and panel layouts and finishing deadlines and all that kind of stuff. And so I had those, and then after I finished that, I sent I think sent more samples to Marvel, and they were like, "That's cool." Oh no, no, I didn't send those samples yet. I think I held on to those because just after Pathfinder, we started working on Stray stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and then I worked on the Stray stuff, and pretty much over the course of that, I think I managed to accumulate samples. So that took about like what 6 years. So like, basically, like all of the stuff now took about 6 years worth of my life to do stuff. Because in 2016, I sent my last set of samples, second last set of samples to Marvel, and by then I'd sent them about 4 packets of samples. By then, um, each coming back with very valid criticisms and changes I need to make. Like the one set was the characters' faces weren't consistent from panel to panel, so I had to work on that. And so about 2016, I sent them a lot of Pathfinder pages, a lot of Stray pages as samples. But now another funny thing is just before that, when I was working on Pathfinder, I was working with Jim Zub on that.
Oh, Jim. I know Jim.
Yeah, yeah, he's awesome.
He's writing
And
Conan now.
yeah, I mean that guy's born to write Conan. Let's get real, like you know what I mean.
After everything else, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently his book's doing really well. Like he's been on it for a while now. And so what happened then? Yeah, so I worked with him on Pathfinder, and basically what happened was by the time I'd finished all the Stray stuff and I was sending my new samples to Marvel, he had gotten working on Thunderbolts at Marvel, and the artist that he had was falling behind a little bit, and they needed help with the filler on like 2 issues. So he basically was like, here's a list of guys that I enjoy working with. And I was on the short list, and my samples sent to the talent coordinator, Ricky Burden. He was showing my sample. He basically said, okay, these are samples of yours are cool. Can you do samples with the script, this Gwen Stacy script? And funnily enough, as he sent me the samples, I got really busy with advertising work. So to do like, I think it was like 4 or 5 pages, it took me about 6 months to do. But I kept on dropping a mail being like, I haven't forgotten, I'm just really busy with work. I'll get to it as soon as I can. And so when I sent those samples in, that was when Jim was also looking for an artist. So that my name was getting mentioned around the office from 2 different places. And so that's when they gave me a shot to be like, oh, okay, do you want to try it? Like, do you want to work on Thunderbolts? And I was like, sweet. So I worked on the first issue, and then before I finished the first issue is when they offered me an exclusive to work for them for like 2 years or something.
Yeah. Now, when you say the first issue, you don't mean the very first issue of Thunderbolts, because that was created by someone else. I've actually never read Thunderbolts, and I went and saw the movie and loved it.
This is Thunderbolts, like volume 3 or 4 or 5 or something.
Okay.
And it was issue like 12 and 13 or 11 and 12 or something like that.
Right.
I was just picking up and doing some filler issues. But the funniest thing is, like, I was like so excited. I'm like, oh, that's freaking awesome. I'm gonna get to draw, like, I looked at who the new lineup was, and I was like, oh, well, the character I want to draw the most is Bucky, and he only shows up at the last page of the book. You know what I mean? And then when I got Champions after Thunderbolts, I was like, oh, sweet, I get to draw Cyclops. And then like, he leaves the team at the end of the issue that before I start. And that seems to be like a running thing. Every time I want to draw a character, they end up like leaving or not being on the roster for the issues I draw. It's very funny. And that's sort of the short-ish version of what happened.
And then now look at what I got in my hands. Like,
nice.
The Dean Haspiel Dream Job. This is actually one of your covers.
The original Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Here's another one here.
Wow.
I only got up to issue 4, so.
Well, when was it? 2 weeks ago, I just finished doing 10 pages of Superman, and I'm doing 7 pages of Superman this week as well.
Wow. 7 pages in 1 week?
No. I'm doing 4, and then I have to do like another 3 next week. I'm
Oh, okay.
like,
So that's
they're
that.
not too hectic, so because
I
there's no
always
way like
wonder what the schedule is with artists, like how many pages you have to produce. Because I know that I'm out of that game. There's no way. I barely stepped my foot in it when I did a few miniseries where I had to create a
Mhm.
schedule, but I never drew as fast as most monthly artists ever. But right now you're doing Challenge the Unknown. Who's writing it?
It was Chris Cantwell, and he's really cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think I've met
Um,
him.
so so schedule wise, I can only do about three and a half pages a week at
Okay.
3 pages minimum. But with the Superman, I ended up getting it a bit late, and I ended up having to do like 10 pages in 11 days, kind of thing.
Wow.
That's insane.
But that's not something I can do like often, like if at all. Because usually I'm very, very like, but they were easiest pages to do, not a lot of characters and stuff. Because I've been on a lot of team books, so doing a an issue where there's only like 2 characters per panel is like a breeze. But yeah, about 3-4 pages a week is my average.
So you're working on Jack Kirby characters between Challengers, the Fantastic Four. I was looking real quick. You also worked on Captain America?
I helped out on like 1 issue.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
no, well, 2 issues. One with Sam Wilson, Captain America, and then one was regular Captain America.
Mm.
And I think I had bronchitis when I worked on the regular Captain America pages.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, I mean, the deadline's a deadline, right? Although you don't want to find
Mhm.
yourself slumped over an art table,
As we've
as
mentioned on this show.
we have mentioned on the show. So do
Yeah,
you
no,
like,
no, no.
are you a fan of Jack Kirby, or does that not, or is it more the characters, since you've been working on a lot of Jack Kirby characters?
Um, sure, that's a controversial question for me. I was hoping never to get asked this, but
Oh,
I'm a fan of the characters, and I totally recognize what Jack Kirby is to comics and how important he was, and the work he did was amazing. But wouldn't say like I love that art style. Like it is, kind of before me, and so I don't even have like nostalgia colored glasses for that. Like I'm a 70s, 80s kind of kid when it comes to comics, 90s especially. But Jack's like there's no denying like we wouldn't have comics wouldn't be what they are today without him. Um,
so he for me as well, and I think a lot of people that first read Jack Kirby, it's kind of like this, like, what am I looking at? What is this? Like, it's
yeah,
very specific, very unique. Um, and then with more mature eyes, I feel like you look back at it, you go, "Oh my God, that's incredible! How is he doing that?" And then you try to dissect it and whatever, if you're a fan or not. But so, what was the cartoonist that influenced you or your style?
Vito knows all these answers to
Mhm.
these. You can just ask him.
Oh,
Um,
no, that's why we have you on the show, man.
no, I mean, it's all like, uh, I was born like late 70s. And so, like, all the comics from like 80s and 90s, especially. So the John Byrne, George Perez, Alan Davis, those guys, Mike Wieringo, um, Tom Grummett, like those type of clean art styles were my jam.
Mm, hmm
I've always said that he had Alan Davis in his DNA.
hmm
Like that, it was one of the first things that I kind of picked up on his art when I first saw it. Like it's mostly in the facial expressions, but it's also that clean kind of the line work is just so undeniably, pretty. Like it's kind of why comics are the way they are. Like comics are idealized versions of us. So I always felt like Sean got that, and like he probably looked at a lot of Alan Davis.
Yeah, I mean, like I also looked at like John Romita Sr. Like I used to copy his Spider-Man a lot when I was in school. I'd find like panels where there's like really cool Spider-Man pose, and I'd try and copy a lot of John Romita Sr. stuff. And then when it came to shiny things, I would obviously go to Bob Layton's Iron Man for stuff.
Hmm. I
You
never
know,
I never thought of that. Yeah, I could see that.
yeah, I used to copy a lot of Invincible Iron Man pages as well.
So Vito, you in our conversation we've had, and people who know you well enough know that you create 12 characters a day. And like these days, Matt Major is designing half of them, right? Like,
Right.
um,
Because Sean's too
so
busy.
yeah, but before, I don't think you were in that mode when you created Stray. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Stray was a more concentrated, developed idea. And my question, Mike, is this is before you're doing 100 characters a month or whatever, right? How, like, besides seeing Sean's art online and not living in America, no real access except through the internet, like, what's the origin of picking, or did you guys develop Stray together? Did you come up with the idea first, Vito? Like, how does Stray work?
I had the idea with someone else, and it's funny. I was reading today even because I was looking for a piece of artwork, and I was reading an interview that Sean and I had done very early on. I think when we did the Kickstarter, and Sean goes, I was a Stray fan before I became the co-creator because I
Mm,
was doing it with someone else,
This
and
is true.
what happened was he took 2 years to do an issue. And Sean, meanwhile, I had Sean on the side kind of preparing. We were going to do a second volume together instead.
hmm hmm
And when that happened, I was like, Sean, I'm gonna, take not take it, but I'm gonna ask him to step down. I'm gonna let him keep his designs, but you are free to redesign everything, as make it your own. And I tailored the script to him. Um, and we changed everything from the original. The original, I've said it when we talked to John Suntress, I think the other day. It was originally supposed to be a sequel to Watchmen without showing Watchmen. It was supposed to be New York 1989, something like that. And once Sean came on, I was like, there's no need to do that. Like, this guy's not, doesn't have to do pastiche
hmm
kind of period work. Let's just do it, let's just make it. And so, uh, with Sean, I just didn't have to deal with that anymore. So I just jumped in and tailored it to him.
Sean, did you help develop the story, or did you lean more on whatever Vito was coming up with story wise?
I sort of leaned into whatever he had going on. Um, Mostly, yeah. I kind of trusted him. So I've always wanted, like, I'm a big animal person and I love dogs and all that stuff. And man, I used to try to come up with ideas for a um, dog themed superhero. I tried over the years several times, but there was always something sort of missing um, from it. And when he told me about Stray, that he was doing that, um, I sort of was like, he told me the story, and I was like, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, I kind of wish I was drawing that. But he was like, sorry, I've got someone else on that, but we can try and work on something else together. And then we tried, what was it that we were on?
Aquarian 7.
No, was it that one? And then we did the Cobra guy.
Oh, Phantom Cobra.
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
should show you that. I gotta post that. It's so good.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I started conceptualizing that, and then you came to me and were like, well, the other guy said he's cool with not doing Stray if you want to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm in it. Can we just put a pin in that for a second? My phone is about to die, so I'm going to switch to my laptop.
Very
Okay.
good.
I will
Very
be
good.
right back.
So what happened, Dean, was we what I did was I wouldn't say I definitely tailored it to him. And then what he did, like, I gave him all the scripts. It's kind of like when I work with you, I gave him all the scripts.
hmm
We kind of hammered it out together. And the thing that I found, the thing that happened with Stray that I think uh, when he comes back on, I'll bring it up to him as well. Sean really helped me with balloon placements and figuring out how to, because I was very early in my lettering.
Mm.
Possibly the Stray #1 would be the fifth book I ever lettered.
Mm.
So Sean, being an artist, and he would like just go, no, push this here, push this here. And he would actually give me lettering placements, and I would actually use those, put my balloons on those, and then just go from there. And absolutely crucial, to me, to have him do that. And I would say that, without him, I don't think that I would be as good of a letterer as I am now. And I'm not that great. I'm serviceable,
Right.
but I would
Right.
say that I was probably considered. I mean, I'm no Todd Klein, but I'm definitely better than just serviceable now.
Right.
But I owe that to Sean. To
I
Sean,
also like that. I also like that. Like I know a bunch of writers who also letter their comics, which means that that's how they edit their writing
right?
once the art comes in as well. No, the only one of the reasons why I want to know how involved Sean was with the story, the original story of Stray, was because you have now worked with different artists on Stray,
Hmm.
right? And so they're probably, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they're probably serving your script, right? Unless they're getting in the trenches of the story, I don't know. The way when I've worked with you, you write the script, I do whatever I can to serve the story
Right.
visually. So is that the case? Like you pretty much are the showrunner of Stray, let's call it.
More or less now. I mean, I think with Sean, it was more collaborative, where like I said, like I would send him scripts, get his uh, feedback, get what he wants to draw out of it, make sure that he got to draw at least one fight scene, an issue, just so there's something of meat to it. And I think nowadays, like with Stray, I definitely still send the scripts out ahead of time and say, if you have any feedback, let me know. Everybody just seems to be guns for hire, so they don't maybe they don't feel like they want to say something, um, but yeah, for the most part.
So Sean, as an artist, I hope you agree with me. As the artist of a comic book, you are the co-author because you're drawing story and you're also adding other aspects that may not be in the script or you're enhancing or whatever. But do you feel like when you said you were kind of like I always wanted to do a dog superhero, dog themed superhero, or whatever? Do you write at all, or are you more a collaborator that serves the story as an artist?
Um, I want to write more, but I know my limitations. So like I can't. I don't expect to be like I'm gonna write a full, uh, you know, serviceable script. I'm more like, okay, cool. I have an idea. Let me work with someone to try and make that happen. Because I'm very
Mm,
slow with other stuff. So, um, I like adding my own little flares whenever I'm working on something. Um, so I usually check with the writer and editors, like, is this cool if I do this? Or I'll put it in like the thumbnails if I'm going to change anything and just make a note of it. And like, I'd say like 98% of the time, everyone's cool with it because they feel like it does serve the story and it, enhances, um, or rather just showcases our love for the character.
hmm
Because that's always like a um, top of my list is like every character is someone's favorite. So yeah, I don't really want to mess that up. Even if it's characters that I hate, I'm like, someone likes this character. I just have to try and do the coolest version of them that I can.
mm. That's it. That's cool. You have an action verse in your hand, Vito?
Yeah, Actionverse was the 24 creators, 2 years in the making. It was the first ever, and I stand by this, the first ever creator-owned weekly miniseries. And Sean actually wrote and drew issue 5, which was the Stray issue, naturally. And like, there's nothing I love better than letting, like, because I was the editor of the project. There's nothing I love better than letting someone just run with an idea. And
I forgot I wrote that.
yeah, no,
Ah,
I'm very proud of the fact that you wrote it. I'm very proud of the fact that I gave you that opportunity actually too, more so than anything. Like it's a fun project, hard project, but um, I did a first time ever in my life. I did a Marvel style script for Ray Anthony Height, in the Midnight Tiger issue. So it was a very loose, very plot driven script. Sean did the issue right after that, and then I wrote the last issue as well. So, but I wrote the last issue for Steve Walker in full script style. So Sean has the ability, I think, to do that. To write his own stuff, and that's proof because that's a trial by fire if ever there was one. To do something weekly and to like draw it and write it and get it on the page and stuff. I think Sean definitely has that ability, and at some point he's going to be doing his own Black Hole or Eight Ball or something. It's maybe not so independent, maybe not so like a slice of life, but definitely something superhero-y that is his 100%.
I'm glad you mentioned Slice of Life because I'm a little jealous of the project Sean did with. Is it Mark Russell? That's his first name, Mark, right? Or am I
Mark Russell, Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four Life Story.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should have drawn that. That should have been me.
It
no,
was
he did
rough.
a great job.
I'll tell you, it was rough. It was very, very tough project because each issue was 30 pages.
Oh my Lord.
Each issue was 30 pages. And like there were days when I struggled because also it's not a very actiony comic.
Exactly. That's ergo quote life story, trying to do kind of neo-realism or whatever, or not as action oriented. It is harder to draw. And listen, I'm a seasoned Harvey Picar veteran, so, and I've also drawn a lot of people's life stories or memoir type stuff. But it's funny because I actually wrote a Fantastic Four story myself, a couple, but where it would involve certain life stories aspects, let's call it, like a day in the life, as it were, right? Which is fun. I don't know how well those do in the market, but I still love the idea behind that, to be able to draw that. It is hard, but I think that the easiest character out of the Fantastic Four to do a story like that is the Thing, even though because he's like this walking golem, and yet there's so much opportunity to write that guy's day in the life story,
So the funny thing is if you pick up Fantastic Four issue 12 and 13, because that was my first Fantastic Four stuff in the regular series by Dan Slott. If you pick up issue 12, you can see for the first maybe 3 or 4 pages, Ben looks completely different to the way I draw him in the rest of the books. Because I wasn't sure how I wanted to draw him, and I was trying to figure it out. I think by page 4 or 5, I kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, and that's how I kind of drew him consistently. But the first couple of pages, he doesn't look the way he looks through the rest of the series.
It's not easy. It's not easy, man.
I just remembered Sean drew a Thing Hulk fight.
For 2 issues, yeah. That was 13, 12 and 13, yeah.
That's the dream. I would not.
That was like awesome. It's definitely like one of the highlights of my comics career because, Dan was just so cool when it came to the fights. He was just like, you have 3 pages of these 2 beating the crap out of each other. Just do what you want. And I ran out of pages because I could have written, like I could have choreographed another 10 pages of this fight. Like I had in my head when I was trying to plot it, like trying to choreograph the fight, I had like this. I'd written it down. I was trying to find a way to condense it, but I had this whole like scary scene that I wanted to draw where it's just the Hulk in like the jungle hunting down the Thing and just being super creepy. But I was like, it's fighting and stuff.
There was a ticking clock aspect of that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So what was really cool, what I loved about it was that that issue was actually like a also, slice of life kind of thing where Reed had made this watch to count down when, because like once a year, Ben could be human for 24 hours. And the watch helped him count down to when he was going to turn. And so the point of the story was that like, Ben and Alicia wanted to start a family and stuff. And so they were going to go to the island and he was going to be human and they were going to chicka pow wow. And what happened as well was while they were on the island, Alicia proposed
to Ben, and she gave him an adamantine ring. I mean, adamantium ring, sorry. And Alicia's dad found out that this was going to happen, and he didn't like this idea. So he took control of the Hulk and sent the Hulk to kill Ben before this happened. And so,
don't know, Alicia's dad is the puppet master, right?
Yeah, puppet master. And so basically they get there, and I think it's like 6 hours or something like that before he turns human, or a couple of hours. I'm like, you have to check comic. And Hulk shows up, and him and the Thing fight, and the Thing, there's a countdown to when Thing's going to be human, and then the Hulk can just kill him outright. And so now he has to fight knowing that there's a countdown happening. And so, it puts a lot of pressure on everyone for those 2 issues. But I'm not going to spoil the rest of it and stuff. You got to check it out. It's I really love it. I had great colors on it, great scripts. Was a lot of fun, a lot of pressure as well. But it really did make me appreciate Ben more as a character.
You just mentioned colors, and I noticed a lot of times that when I worked with you, you're very particular about colors. Are you at the point now where you're choosing your colorists? Are you like at least recommending?
I am recommending, but usually the colorists I want are very busy, so I don't get them all the time. But that one, I had Marcio Menez on that's when I was on Normal Fantastic Four, and then I had Nolan Woodard on Life Story, and they're both like top of the ones that have made me look good. So in Life Story, there were pages that I just like, I was burnt out before the end of the series, and I was really struggling. And Nolan just knew how to make it. He would like make, even when I did something very flat looking, his colors would give it like a shape and stuff.
Nolan's great. He colored me on Fantastic Four. I did a few pages here and there. I think on the James Robinson tour of the Fantastic Four, and Nolan was the colorist, and I was like, damn, this guy's good.
He's amazing. So what he did when we were on Fantastic Four, and I spoke to him about it. It was his idea to draw, because obviously the Life Story, each issue is set in a different decade. So he literally colored each issue slightly different, with like a different kind of hue to it for that decade, which is amazing. Like, it's amazing, honestly. There's a page in one of the issues where the FF art are at someone's grave. I'm not going to spoil it for people that might want to read it. And like that page specifically, he just kicked so much ass on that page. So every time I get a chance, I ask to work with him, but he is very busy.
As artists, do you guys what do you guys look for in a colorist when you're not coloring your own work? Like, what are the qualities that you look for?
Usually for me, it's someone that can, depending on the book, I'll usually have in mind an idea of what I want. Whether it's a book that I want more atmosphere in, then I'll look for someone that can convey atmosphere. Or if it's a superhero book, I want someone that can do like very bright, bold coloring, which is sort of why I usually want Nolan on a superhero thing that I do. But it all kind of depends. Don't die. Sorry, my girlfriend's also sick. She's coughing on that.
I don't know. I don't work with a lot of colorists, because I have done, and everyone I've worked with have been pretty great. Alan Pasalacqua, Trisha Mulville recently on Superman. I did. God, there've been so many. Julia Brusco, is that her name? She was on Scalped and other books, I think, and she colored my Spider-Man story. I really enjoyed her. Nolan Woodard, but. If I was to say what am I asking for if I'm not coloring, because I draw more cartoony and less rendered, let's say, the way I color myself is a flat color, a shade, and a highlight. Right, that's it. Yeah. That's all I know how to do. and usually a limited palette at that, right? So if someone's going to go whole hog and use all 4 colors, you know, CMYK, K being black, so really CMY. I trust them to hopefully figure out how to not go nuts. There's nothing I just don't like the over rendered coloring on over rendered art. And when I say over rendered, I mean very rendered art with, you know, noodling and doing all. I remember one time Archie was going to publish. Well, they were publishing like a Fox one shot or something, and they were republishing a Alex Toth story that had been colored very flat, very limited palette, right? And they brought someone in to do all the rendering on the face. I was like, what are you doing? You can't publish that. And luckily they listened to me, you know, because it was gross. It just like, you're overcompensating. It's like somebody trying to drive a Lamborghini when they need just a pickup truck, you know, like get out of here. So
yeah, I see that a lot in some, well, not a lot, but I see that sometimes, like, you know, there's certain, like, you can't over render, say, Mike Manolo, for example. Like that
no,
just
you
won't
can't.
work. It'll look super weird. But then when it comes to more subtle coloring, I really love like Dave Stewart when he colors Hellboy
Absolutely.
and stuff. Like his style could work with over rendered art. Does it make sense? So if someone's using like a lot of cross hatching, a lot of lines, his like subtle colors can just make it work. It's like,
think about what
classics.
And think about what all those lines do when you're over. When again, over is not a criticism, but it can be. But when you're rendering more than you need to, let's call it like, you know, Neil Adams or somebody, or, you know, try to draw neorealism. When you put a flat color or two over that area, the line work is also doing some of the work of the coloring, because it's creating a shade, you know. If you're just doing a bold outline like I do, you know, usually not too much rendering inside the artwork, then yeah, you might want to go in there and add a little tone or a little bit here, a little more to give a little more depth, but don't overdo it. Let it be a comic book, you know. At least that's how I feel.
So two artists who I think do get like don't need to be over rendered, and yet they often get over rendered in the colors, and it sort of takes away from their art, is aside from say JLA the Nail, arguably is really, really good still, but it doesn't necessarily feel over rendered. Alan Davis's work, when he gets modern colors put on his work, it doesn't really enhance his work enough. It takes away from it. His stuff needs to be flatter. And the same goes for Mark Bagley. If you look at Mark Bagley's like current rendered work, colored work, I don't think it fits quite as well as something a bit more flatter to his work.
John Romita Jr. sometimes gets way overcolored these days.
Yeah,
100%. I 100% agree. Like he needs like a nice medium between flat and just a little bit of shading added to it. Like I honestly just want to sit and color his stuff just for fun for myself. But yeah, that he often gets like super over rendered, and I'm like,
it's like they're scared of his art style because it's an older kind of, you know. There's this changing of the guard right now where they get artists that can draw, let's call it Brian Hitch Hollywood blockbuster movie style, right? For lack of a better term. But then it's like they can only do 6 issues a year, you know, because of the amount of rendering that goes into that. And then sometimes, you know, and that's where comics have kind of gone in some way. But I'm still enjoying like Mike Mignola, you know, kind of like where the art is a little more black and white abstract that you slap some color on.
Same with Larson.
So that's the thing that I've noticed in comics now is a lot of the modern artists use like super fine lines. Super fine lines. You have I think it's Simone DeMeo, but he colors his own work. Like you hardly see any of the lines itself. Frank Whiteley as well, he uses very fine lines, and I think does he color himself? I feel like he colors himself.
Frank Whiteley does not, I think, color himself. He has a pretty good, the guy from All-Star Superman, whose name escapes me right now.
Jamie something. I can't remember his last name.
And also with Frank Quitely, he is basically enhancing pencils.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. But the thing is, his colors are not over rendered. They rendered just enough. He like that's so subtle. Like if you look at like where the seams are on like a Batman piece, you can see that there's some like shading where the seams are to give them shape, but it doesn't overpower his work. But I think like those type of guys are very popular right now. Same with Dan Mora. He uses very fine lines for his work.
I feel like what he's doing is, and he's probably working digitally. I don't work digitally. I mean, I color and letter digitally, but I pencil and ink on, Bristol board still.
I think he does digital. I think he does
the thing I've seen recently in comics is and it's just hard for me to look at, is tiny lettering. I don't know why the lettering got like 4 or 5 point size. It's insane. I guess they're trying to pack as much words in. But worse is that some people who work digitally, I feel like they're inking a line at a certain thickness, but sometimes they're shoving it and reducing it digitally into a panel, whereas the tiniest, thinnest line, and it's clear that the drawing was bigger than that, then they had to shove it in to the spot on the page or whatever. And so it just becomes like a Frankenstein of digital art.
Yeah. So where was I going with this? So yeah, like Dan Mora, he can knock out like 3 pages a day, man. He's insane. He can do 3 pages a day. But also it looks like he doesn't go in and do a lot of line weight stuff and whatever. His lines are very, very thin. Whereas I still like the old school drawings where like the lines are bold and thick and you don't spend ages cross hatching stuff.
Like Joe Sinnott.
Like you look at Ellen Davis. Yeah, hey?
Like Joe Sinnott, maybe kind of like Joe Sinnott on everybody, Kirby to Perez to everybody, like he had a certain line weight.
I mean, if you look at Perez and Davis and stuff, when there's like, are you decent?
That's okay. It's okay. We're grown men. It's okay.
So, I mean, if you just look at just like this part of the arm with Perez or Davis, it's usually almost like 2 feathered lines and maybe like a squiggle of black there.
That's it.
Literally it. It's not like constant cross hatching to give it shape or anything like that. But it's like a thick, bold line. And so I kind of like using that in most of my work. So you'll see a lot of it in my Green Arrow stuff. Because I wanted to make Green Arrow has often been I sort of describe him as the sort of the experimental character in DC, because they usually make him like the noir, down to earth, and they give him like all these artists that are trying something that are completely different from superhero stuff. Whereas when we worked on it, I wanted to make it purely a superhero book. And I think Josh Williamson was the same. He was like, it's a superhero book, bold colors, superhero stuff. And so that's what I leaned into. With the Superman stuff I'm doing now, I'm trying to do the thinner lines with less rendering, A, just to try it out, B, just to make up for time to see if it's faster, and if I can kind of perfect it a bit to make it look cool. Not necessarily that it's going to be my go-to style for anything, but if anything, reading all of the Stuart Immonen's books, you kind of change depending on the title, and he changes flawlessly and makes stuff look amazing.
I love his Next Wave art. It's so good on Next Wave. But it sounds like what you're.
But that's the thing. You look at Next Wave, then you look at his Ultimate Spider-Man, and then you look at him doing Superman Secret Identity. Completely different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, when you're describing Dan Mora's work, I've started to wonder, is it almost like a very refined sketch style that he's drawing? It almost looks like a sketch, because the line always looks like it's moving, right? So he's like moving the figure. It always seems like it's undulating half the time, because of the way he draws. It's almost like a sketch. And because he draws 2 or 3 pages a day, he has created such a wonderful shorthand,
Yeah.
that I think you're also trying to meet in your Superman story, it seems, a little bit.
That's what I'm trying to do, but I do have this urge to ink Dan Mora's work just so I can see what it'll look like with bolder lines and more traditional inking. Just for myself, just for fun, because I love the guy's work. It's fantastic. His style has like a cartoony feel, but it's also like very dynamic. And his figures are so dynamic and like look like bold superheroes and stuff. So I can understand why.
Also, what he's doing, and this is something that you have to deal with as well because you like to draw superhero fights. I cannot figure out how to draw another superhero fight, so I'm just going to just copy everybody else. And it seems like Dan is constantly still innovating somehow another angle on that damn fight.
Yeah,
is that a conundrum for you? Is that
some of these
a
angles? I'm like, I never would have thought of using, but it's the same as Frank Quitely, dude. His fight scenes are phenomenal.
Yeah,
in his Batman and Robin issues, I still remember the one double page spread where Robin was fighting. Damian was fighting a conjoined triplets. I don't know if you remember that page.
Yeah,
dude, that fight was phenomenal, and like just the way it's, they push up against Robin and like they start hitting him, and just like the camera angle just kind of goes closer and closer and closer until you just see Robin, so you can kind of feel how he's like pressured because he can't. Like, he's boxed in and like amazing.
Yep. Or like We Three, the animals in We Three, the way he would draw conflict was amazing. Another artist very different from, but also a master of subtlety, Steve Dillon. When he would draw violence, The Punisher or whatever, he would find the most quietest moment to draw the most disgusting thing, like just smashing someone's jaw like halfway off. But he would find a way to draw like it was like they're just drinking coffee, and suddenly there's a splash page with a close-up of a moment, and I always thought, what an interesting way to draw violence.
Supreme Power Nighthawk is filthy with those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I highly recommend if anybody wants to see what Dean's talking about. That's totally the book you got to check out. I mean,
but also, who was it? Who was that drew Wanted? Wanted also fantastic.
Oh, J.G. Jones.
Yeah.
Also
fantastic.
I'm a big fan of Marcos Martin or Martin or whatever these days. Unbelievable. Yes. Javier Pulido.
Yeah.
I mean, and talk about like reducing their lines, right? And just getting to the essence of what a comic, should look like.
I mean, that's the same for Chris Samney and Evan Shaner. I love
Absolutely.
Evan Shaner. Like he's doesn't over render anything, but it's just
And knowing how to use black as or how to use negative space, or unbelievable.
All those guys work and in black and white or in color.
Yep.
Same with Greg Smallwood too. Like
yes,
on a lesser degree, maybe not as
his Human Target stuff. Did you check that out?
Yeah.
And Martian Manhunter is been really an interesting series.
The Absolute.
Holy mackerel. I forget the artist on that. Is that
Javier Pulido, I think, isn't it?
That's Javier Pulido. Yeah.
No, I haven't picked that up, but I must check it out though.
I mean, that's great coloring too in there. So check that out.
Sean, I wanted to ask you, if we took up your Wikipedia page and we looked at your list of your bibliography, we'd see like a bunch of different characters. Is there a character that you would like a longer run? You had a pretty good run with Green Arrow. Is there one that you would like a longer run with?
Look, man, if honestly, if Williamson was working on Green Arrow with me, I probably could have worked on that for another 2 years, easy, like no problem. Because that was, I mean, doing Roy justice for a change was a lifelong goal of mine because he wasn't treated very well for many years. So
Roy being Speedy, Dean, if you missed the context.
Roy what?
Roy, who was Speedy, then became Arsenal.
Got it. Oh, yeah. Also, because for our listeners,
yes.
Sorry.
Right.
I always take for granted that all the listeners know all the comic lore, anyways. As for other characters, man, I got a list. I have a list of characters I'd like to work on. I can't tell you, man. I'd love to work on Daredevil for a long time as well. A good run on Daredevil would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Cap, obviously. And then there's something I'm sort of working on pitch wise, but I can't say anything else because we don't know what's happening yet. But
pitches you should never talk about a pitch before it's pitched.
No, exactly. But it is also one of those things on my list. But the thing is, I was discussing it the other day. Is like there's also, you get torn between wanting to do the popular character that everybody wants to, like Batman, for example, because you know that there are tons of readers and you're going to get a whole lot of people that have never seen your work before onto your work now, so I'm always torn between picking those characters, just so that, my comic profile gets bigger and I get more people that like my work, and that's hopefully, kind of get to a point where I'm making a better living. But then there's also part of me that knows that those characters can also be hampered a lot by, continuity and crossovers and tie-ins, and you can kind of be a slave to those things. Whereas there are those B and C grade characters that don't have anything going on for them right now, and you could be the guy that comes in and elevates them to like A-list status, and you could be known as the guy that kind of made this character popular again, and you can put your own little stamp on it, which is always nice.
That so almost happened with Green Arrow on your Green Arrow run, because you started out at, what was it, 4 or 6 issues, and then they bumped it up to 12. So I mean, there was something there.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it started off just being like a mini series, then it was a maxi series, then it was an ongoing, because we got, I spoke to the fans, we kind of showed off some stuff, so that can happen. So like I'm very torn because I have like a list of characters from all different, comic companies that I'd love to work on and be like, oh, let's do this now, I've got a list of Marvel characters, a list of DC characters, then all like forgotten guys like freaking Ultraverse or cross-gen stuff, or those kind of things. Old Image superhero comics, Cyberforce, Wildcats, like, even though Wildcats is DC now, but you know what I mean. So it's difficult to say, but I mean, like, all these characters I would love to have like good long runs on, like legendary runs that people can talk about for years to come, and obviously do reprints all the time and new special editions and so on.
Right.
But we'll see how it goes.
Sean, do you feel like your foot is firmly planted in the mainstream superhero Marvel DC world, and that you'll get a lot of work years to come? Are you afraid of becoming, last week's flavor, and you're not being hired as much anymore because of the new kids on the block? And then where do you live? Where do you stand? Because right now you're just perpetuating other people's IP, which is great. That was a goal I had, right? But then more recently, it's like I'm trying to lean into my pantheon of characters, whatever that means. And if it means there's 300 or 500 readers, so far so good, right? But it's clearly not enough to sustain. It's not enough it's not a business plan, right? So, we got a little dancing behind Vito. It's Jane. What's up, man? And so my question more is like, would you return to Stray? Do you want to develop a brand new character you write and draw yourself? Like, do you feel like the end game is once you've been, squeezed dry, at Marvel and DC and other companies that have IP that someone else owns? Do you need to own your own characters in years to come?
It's difficult because of where I am currently in my headspace, my own headspace, and emotionally and stuff. So I don't think I have a big enough name or presence to sell anything on my name alone. So like my own IP or whatever the case might be. And that's why I would be torn about working on like a B grade character or Batman or Spider-Man, so I can get my name out there, get more people seeing my stuff, make more sales, get more fans and friends, so that when I do my own thing, it might be feasible. But also I've got, so it's been a super rough year for me, and also since I had COVID back in like 2020 or something, I've slowly seen like my mindset over the past couple of years has changed, where and I'll openly talk about this. I mean, I'm not. Vito knows I'm a sharer, right? My mindset is in a weird space that, like, right now, if I'm not drawing for work, I can almost not even bring myself to draw when I'm not doing it for work.
I feel the same way, man. I feel the same way because I've gotten to a point where drawing has become a burden, and because I'm also not nearly as good as an artist as I want to be, and trying to figure out that shorthand. And like, just like I said earlier, how Dan Mora, the fact that he draws 2 or 3 pages a day means he's figured out a system and a rhythm. But if he stopped drawing 2 or 3 pages a day and then went to writing for a month or two and then tried to draw again, I mean, he's good enough. I'm using him as an example. But I was drawing Red Hook and this and that, and like, I just would do it. I didn't think about it. Now I think too much when I draw, and I'm getting in my own way. And I feel like I enjoy writing more than I do enjoy drawing. And I don't know what happened to you with COVID and what you're in if you're bearing the lead or something, but in terms of, you know, emotionally sitting at that art table, I'm also trying to figure out a quality of life, because as great as it is that I'm not going to a 9-to-5 job, I don't have the 9-to-5 job as an anchor either. You know, it's a 24/7, 365 job, right? So I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to be 58 at the end of this month. What the hell am I doing anymore? You know? So, and I'm worried because I've become allergic to pitching. I've become allergic to, oh, let me try and beg for a morsel at Marvel and DC to get 10 pages here or 1 page there or whatever, you know? So I'm having a little existential crisis myself. I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about.
So I don't know if it's an existential crisis so much as just general worry, because I support a lot of people, my family and whatnot. I'm not going to get into that. But also I did go from working literally every single day, you know, all the time, to this year trying to limit myself and not work on weekends unless it's necessary. Right. So, you know, I'll force myself to take the time, and I'll be like, listen, I can only do what I can do. I'm not going to kill myself, because, you know, that could happen anyways. And that's why, like, for now, just drawing other people's stuff and them getting to pay me and stuff is sort of the way I'm leaning. Mostly because a lot of the thought process is out of my hands, and I'm still that kid that wants to draw all the superheroes he grew up with. So it's not like I've run out of things I want to draw. Like, again, I still want to draw Daredevil. I would still like to draw Batman. I still like to have my stamp on everything. So, like, I haven't run out of things. I haven't gotten tired of drawing these other IPs. But I am worried that if I'm not drawing for them, I won't be able to motivate myself to draw my own stuff. As much as I want to. I've got ideas. I've written down an idea for a webcomic I want to start doing, like a fun thing where I release a page a week, or like a comic strip a week kind of thing.
What you're talking about is something I've said, that my art isn't done until you have received it, for better or for worse, right? So it's about the investment you put into the work. Will it be seen? You know, Batman will be seen, whether the fans hate it or not. It will be seen. Daredevil, whatever you've worked on for Marvel and DC, the minute you start doing your own thing, it's like, it's such a gamble, and you wonder, you know, as a communication artist, are you communicating your art, right? And just a couple two other things. This weekend I took off to go see 3 plays. I'm gonna go play games this afternoon. I don't do this anymore because I usually feel like I need to be at the art table hustling and working and trying to do something, right? But also, that can't be my life. My life has to be enjoying space with other people and doing other things than comics, right? And
100%.
become more well-rounded because of that, right? And I think, I don't know, Vito, if you wanted to veer into this, but I think this might be a good opportunity to talk about that topic we were going to bring up maybe in this show.
Oh, the Rob Liefeld with his IP and thinking that retailers don't support him. There was an interesting thing that he said in that article. Let me pull it up.
And by the way, we're talking about Rob Liefeld, who's a millionaire, I think, and famous. You know, so we're not in his domain, his dimension, even. You know, but
I mean, like if I could wish for something, I wish I could go back to the 90s and be a comic artist then.
Right. I mean, especially in the Image era, right? So, and you would have been perfect for that lineup, Sean. But and Stray, you guys would have rocked Stray at Image or at the launch of Image. It would have killed. It would have killed.
Yeah, I think if we had done Stray around the same time that Invincible came out, even like at Image, I think it'd still be running today.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, it's running today. Don't get me wrong. I just mean that,
right, but
in ongoing.
Yeah, it'd be a good problem to have.
Yeah,
but what interesting, and then you'll bring it up and say the thing that Rob said, but he's kind of talking, and we'll get into it, but he's kind of talking about crowdfunding in a weird way.
Sort of. So here's what he wrote. He said, following his initial post, wherein he's saying that he's going to be using the, I guess it's an app called Whatnot. I don't know if it's a website, but I know it's an app to carry his book. He wrote a different post that said he loves and supports retailers, but doesn't want them to fail, but they're no longer reliable to him as a creator. And this is the quote: "I buy online and in person. I've advocated on my podcast to support the clubhouses, as that's what I believe they are. I don't want them to disappear like record stores, all of which have closed and vanished in my area and well beyond. I'm a weirdo and I'm prone to saying weirdo things. One of those things is that I can't continue to rely on the traditional marketplace to fully support my artistic endeavors. Expanding into new markets is part of evolution." And when Dean sent me the link, I thought, oh, here's Rob being a crank again. And then I got to this part in the story, in the article, and I'm like, he's not wrong. Like that's the real kicker of the whole thing. It has nothing to do with retailers. Retailers are fabulous. I was a retailer for years. I've worked for retailers. I support my retailers, but he's not wrong. The market has dwindled because the age of the guys going to comic stores is getting older, not younger. Getting younger kids into the comic store involves being involved in gaming, being involved in Pokemon cards or Magic cards.
But I mean, also like a big thing that I noticed with retailers and stuff is like comics. I mean, I don't know how the price thing works there by you guys, but comic books here are freaking expensive. Like for kids can't afford that kind of stuff. Like the thing is only adults can afford comics and variants, because sadly I don't like the idea of too many variants on comic books.
I don't either.
It is not something that can help children afford or kids afford or get into comics at all. It's purely for the middle-aged man who has enough dispensable income that they can go and buy the 1 in 500 and order however many comics they need to get. And I don't think that helps either. There should be more digest size printed comics that are cheaper for kids to get into. Absolutely. And try and, the old bullies like us are just getting older and freaking dying off. And then what happens to comics then if you're not going to do something to make kids get into it? But I mean, Fortnite comics, man, bring out more Fortnite comics, but not only just bring them out, make them more affordable for the kids that are. I mean, I've got a nephew that's obsessed with Fortnite to the point where he's 10 years old, and I catch him online at 1 o'clock in the morning during the week when he should be asleep, and I have to jump onto his chat that he's having with his friends, and I see there's a chat group. And as soon as I join the chat group, you see him hop off and disappear very quickly. He's obsessed. And I'm like, maybe if there were more Fortnite comics with Fortnite characters and stuff that he could get into, that he could afford. Like I'm not going to go and buy him like 200-300 rands worth of comics because that's a lot of money.
Well, and another thing that Rob Liefeld brings up, which is what I was thinking about, at least what I've been trying to do and encourage other independent artists to do with crowdfunding or self-publishing, is he's saying, and again, I don't know how much this is true or not, but like you go to a comic store and a new Rob Liefeld comic has come out and it's gone. It's sold out, according to him, and you can't find it anymore. Meanwhile, there are 15 copies of a new issue of something that isn't selling as well. You can't find Rob Liefeld, assuming they ordered Rob Liefeld's comic, and then they don't order anymore. It's donezo, and in the store, it's only $4 or $5 for that comic book. And he's saying, no, I'm going to charge $30 to self-publish it myself and send it to your home, or $40 when I sign it. And he's making more money, and that's the model I've been kind of trying to figure out right now. Is I'm producing 24-page comics that I'm selling for 15, but they're artisanal, they're physical. You can only get them from me, blah, blah, blah. And yes, they're not Batman and they're not Daredevil. I get it. So it really is a thing of like, you're supporting the artist or the creators, right? And with Rob Liefeld fans, he might have enough fans to pull off this next juncture.
But also he's a millionaire. He has the money to take the chance and see if it works or not.
Right.
That's true.
We don't. We're like, will I be able to sell enough to pay my mortgage or feed myself this month?
You know what I could do on all the covers of my new comics, and this is true, I could say I wrote and drew a 4-page Deadpool story. From the guy who wrote and drew a 4-page Deadpool story is Dean Haspel's COVID cop.
You make a joke, but there was a point where I was going to try to get Riley Brown to do it, actually, but I was going to get a Deadpool banner for conventions that had my name, and then Deadpool saying has never written Deadpool.
That's right.
It's like, oh well, everybody wants to see Deadpool. Okay, no, here.
They come to your table and they're like, oh. And then while you're there is when you do the job, the hard work, right?
No, everybody comes to my table and goes, oh.
Even your fans.
So I literally ran a poll because I was like, listen, a dollar is worth a lot more here by me. Like it's worth like almost $20, right? So for example, to say $3 here, I can buy a Big Mac. To give you an idea. And I did a poll. I don't know if I did it on Instagram or Twitter or something, just to be like, if I released an online comic, would you subscribe to it? Or would you subscribe to it, donate, or not give any money? And like, the results are very sad. Like people wouldn't subscribe. They won't give you $1 for it. Like, I mean, if I had like, even just like, what's it? 500, fans paying $1 each towards like a comic book of mine, that would cover my rent every month.
Right.
But that won't happen.
Right.
That's
let's go back. Let's go back to your first New York experience, which is bad pizza. And use a slice of pizza as your, barter system. And there are slices of pizza. I think you can still get a slice for $3.50 near me in Brooklyn. But the majority of pizza places now are at least $5 a slice, maybe more, up to $7, right? Mm-hmm. More people are going to spend $5 or $7 on a slice than they would give you $3 for a comic. Trust me. And coffee, the same type of thing. So it's like you're almost competing with a slice of pizza or a cup of coffee or both, Well,
what I was going to bring up was when Sean was talking about Fortnite, and it's not that kids don't have the money to buy a comic. It's they don't have the time. Because to read a comic is to not read one $3.50 comic. It's to read 7 $3.50 comics. And if that's the case, why don't I buy a $45, $59 video game that I can at least get a complete experience instead of waiting, which is, going back to what Sean was saying about we should have more digest size books. We should have those DC, they're really fantastic, those DC ones. And Marvel just started putting them out as well. I can't remember what, they're like
6x9, let's say, like
something
6x9.
like that. Yeah, they're fantastic. And they have whole stories, and they're like $14 at the most. That's what your model should be.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny what happened to comics. I'm trying to find my version of what you just said, Vito. It's somewhere. What happened to comics is that it used to be 20 to 24 pages for a certain amount of money, and then they would collect an arc at some point. That started happening in the 80s. And now the YA market is like, no, make a 200-page issue of comics and enough of a story that feels substantial. And maybe there's a cliffhanger or not, but then there'll be 2, 3, 4, a volume of 10 books, so that now it gets into libraries. And then there's a lot of manga that's like 100 books, 100 volumes. So forget the comic book.
But
why would you even buy a comic book?
But my problem is that if someone came up to you and they were like, oh, I love Spider-Verse, man, I love Spider-Verse, I want to read more of that, I love Miles, where do I start?
Right.
What do you tell them, man? Like every few months there's a new #1 Miles Morales Spider-Man comic.
Yeah.
And then there's like 7 Spider-Verse series that have come out.
That's the one. Yeah, I have the Captain America.
That's cool.
Dean, which one is that one?
So what I'm holding up in my hand is Daredevil Born Again. Obviously, when the TV show came out, they republished in this, like, I'm going to say 6x9. It might be a little bit bigger format for $14.99. It's the Mazzucchelli Miller story, plus I think a couple other things, and including in the back the pencils and layouts and the script of an issue. So it's Frank Miller and Mazzucchelli, like raw materials as an additional, and it's like, and it's $15. It feels good. It's small enough you can still read it, and it's it's that flat color, That's what there's like 3 colors on that page, maybe.
That's awesome.
I mean, come on, man.
He has their version as well, which is $9.99, which is even cheaper.
Right.
And they have All-Star Superman, like the entire All-Star Superman.
Right.
So,
and then you get your Scott Dumbier giant, like the pictures of the original pages, and it's like $150, version. So you get both. You get both.
But that's the symbol of the market. The big thing is for the guys like us that are like 50 years old or over, and have that disposable income, whereas the smaller ones are disposable.
What we need in independent comics is Paul Pope again. Okay, when I met Paul Pope in the late 90s, this guy was doing oversized comics that were treasury editions way before anybody in alternative comics were doing treasury editions, where you saw the artwork, you saw the whiteout or whatever, right? And then he was also printing little CD booklets that literally was a CD booklet of like another kind of comic or a catalog or something, right? And he was just that's brilliant, right? So I mean, I know we have certain publishers right now who are thinking about the formats and luxury items, because the physical copy is starting to become a luxury item, is what's starting to happen. So
I hate that though. Like, I mean, I still love my old comics that are just falling apart because I've read them so much.
35 cents, 50 cents, whatever it was. Like back when it just changed so much, so dramatically, that I don't even know if I can recommend investing. There's variant covers and all that stuff, but like I just wait for the trade now if I'm going to read a story. Sorry.
Oh, same, because I don't have space for more comic boxes, man. Like I just get the trade, pop it on the shelf, can read the story in a single sitting. That's what I'm doing now.
Right.
But there are a few things I want to get. I'm obviously, like, I've had to cut down a lot. So right now the main titles that I'm picking up are World's Finest, Dan Mora and Mark Waid, obviously.
Yep, me too.
And I'm picking up Daredevil, but I'm getting the I don't think it's not the Zdarsky one. It's the other one.
I have not read Daredevil in a while. and I really should pick up Daredevil because, you know, they go to 2 or 3 year arcs, then they go to a new number one,
and then
you're
like
let me go read the
having
story now.
tie-ins and all that stuff. You can just read them.
Yeah.
It's oh gosh, what's his name now again? I'm being so stupid.
I also pick up Fantastic
Saladin,
Four.
Is it Saladin?
No.
Saladin Ahmed that's doing it currently?
No, I will tell you now. It is.
Who's writing it?
Is it?
Oh, actually, yeah, it's Saladin Ahmed and no man, who's this? I don't know. It's late. I'm tired. My brain is not working.
Okay, we're gonna cut off here in a few minutes here.
So, Vito, what is Sean part of your Oathbound thing?
No, he's not.
Okay.
You know, I don't bother Sean.
Why is he big time now or something? What am I, small potatoes?
I have him working on. Sean for me is doing a Stray omnibus cover at some point, which will be collecting the volumes 1, 2, and 3. He's also doing one final cover for Stray. You know what's funny? I should have said this earlier, but Sean is always, his name is always listed on the cover and in the credits, because even if he's not, you know, even if it's just a cover, which I hate to say just a cover because it takes as much time as anything, but even if Sean is, you know, doing the minimal amount to stay involved in Stray, he's still my co-creator, and I don't think the book exists without him, even if he's not contributing to the actual story itself. Like I don't think Stray is Stray without Sean. So to me, that's my, no matter who's doing the art on the book, my Rosetta Stone is always having Sean's name there, you know. And you know, there is
Daredevil by Aaron Kuder. He's drawing Daredevil.
Oh, Aaron Kuder, that's it.
Love Aaron's work so much.
Yeah, and going back to, you know, I think you had asked Sean if he was going to ever come back to Stray. There's a plan. It's a slow-moving plan. Sean is going to draw the very last Stray arc. You know, not to say that I won't do one-shots or whatever, but Sean is going to draw the last Stray arc. And, you know, put his
so that is my fault. Like I said, I've had like a loose script for like a year now or something. But like I was saying, I'm struggling to draw anything that's not work related. Like, I mean, like severely, like struggling so much that I'm booking an appointment with a doctor this week, but it might only be in a couple months, just because of the stuff that's going on in my head. So friends of mine have suggested that I've now developed a different form of like ADHD, and it's causing a lot of issues in my day-to-day life and how I do things, and, you know, let things fall by the wayside until the last minute, and trying to motivate myself to do anything, and short attention span and all that kind of stuff. So it's really difficult. Like I'll sit here and I'll open it and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to work on this. And then I'll, you know, get up and do something else. And even like work, like I've, you know, got to sit down and force myself to sit and work on something. So I'm hoping that if I see a doctor, I can get something that can help mediate some of this stuff so I can get back to focusing. Because I used to be able to sit at my desk and draw for like, you know, 5-6 hours, no problem. Now I can barely make it to an hour just drawing something before I have to get up and move around and do something.
But I mean, and I'm not saying this because people are watching this or anything, but you understand that I don't hold you to anything. You know what I mean? Like I know.
I mean, like I have plans for things. I've got my, like I said earlier, I do have an idea for webcomic that I want to just, even if it's just for fun, that I want to get on, but I'm struggling to get on it. I plan to start a YouTube channel this year where I talk about my processes and how to draw comics and get into the details that a lot of people that do those type of videos tend to leave out. Like, what pens do you use? Why do you use them? What programs do you use? Like, where do you start with the page? How you like, I want to do all of that stuff and put it out there for people to learn how to do comics, because I get asked that often, like, oh, I need some pointers, and I feel like I've got some insight that can maybe help people just kind of cross that bridge. And I want to do that, but I'm struggling if I do not have a deadline looming over my head, I struggle to sit here and do stuff. And it is making life extremely difficult on a very personal level for myself. And I mean, earlier this year, Vito knows I was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year as well. But thankfully, I'm doing fine now, so that's cool. I did have to get that operated on and use up my savings to pay for it and whatnot. So,
sorry about that, man.
No, well, it's fine.
I was gonna say, it sounds like the plan really is to figure out a way to sit at the art table a little more substantially, because I too am always trying to figure out a way to not be drawing right now. You know, I don't know why that is. It's like the very thing that I craved as a child happened in a sort of way. And you know, I do live off of comics right now somehow. I don't know how, and yet I don't want to draw them right now. I want to write plays, and I'll write comics, but or prose or whatever. So I guess the first thing you got to figure out is how to like be able to sit back down at the art table a little bit more. I do have to say, sometimes it's a real struggle to draw it, but when I'm done with the page and I finish everything, I'm usually pretty happy that I did it. You know what I'm saying? So there's an end goal. But
I mean, I want to tell stories. Like I will sit and think like, oh man, I'd love to draw this.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't bring myself to do it because I love telling stories. I love finding ways to engage with people reading these stories in like ways that'll make them go, oh wow, that's amazing.
Right.
But yeah, it's just that bridge between the end product and, you know, kind of not doing something else that you're trying to
cross. Well, that's what you got to figure out, and me too, and probably a whole bunch of other artists that are listening to this right now. But then the ultimate end game is to have worked on so many cool projects that when you decide to draw that final arc of Stray, people will come over and you can maybe crowdfund it in a way, or find a publisher, let's say, that can pay you the money you need to draw it, you know?
Right. So, ideally, yes.
I think, you know, the hope is that, at least on my end, is that like it can stand as a like a statement for Sean that will make him kind of undeniable in the industry. I don't think, you know, like I don't. It's funny, people when we first crowdfunded Stray, a lot of people were like, "Wow, you know, like why haven't I seen this guy's work or anything like that?" And it wasn't for lack of there being a spot in the industry for another superhero comic, because you know there isn't, but there is. You know, like what can you say about something that has been said a million times already? And I don't think it's a mistake that Stray became part of Sean's portfolio that ended up getting him an exclusive contract at Marvel, which then led to like a work at DC. Like, and I'm not, that is not me taking credit for Sean, because Sean is undeniable already to me. Like, I think Sean would have been fine without Stray. I think it might have taken a little longer, you know, maybe, or, you know.
Hey, look, man, everything happened in that order for a reason.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. Like, so let me give you a funny thing, right? So December, I felt something was up, and then in January I was diagnosed with cancer. In January I got operated on. Up until that point, for the past few months, I've been saving money to try and take a month off, because I feel like I haven't taken a break in years. So I feel like I've just lived with burnout, you know, however that is. And so I had saved up a certain amount of money to be like, I want to take a month off where I can kind of relax and just find that joy in just drawing for myself for fun again, and not just to be able to live. After I was diagnosed, I didn't have medical aid. So all my savings went into this operation. And I was like, oh, I got to start from scratch now. And, you know, like, it just so happened that I'd managed to save enough money to pay for this. Otherwise, I would have been screwed. Right? So that, in a way, you can...
Uh-oh. Oh, he's coming back. Hold on.
Here we go.
Okay, there we go. But also you can look at it in like I managed to have the right amount of money to help me get through this right now. A couple of weeks afterwards, there was a policy that I'd taken out a couple of years ago where they were like, oh, when you get to 65, if you haven't claimed, you'll get some money back. And I was like, oh, that seems like a good idea. So after my operation, a couple of weeks later, I got a message where they were going to offer me something else as part of this policy. And then I said to them, like, wait, what does this policy cover exactly? Because like I'm terrible at like keeping track of paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, oh no, it covers if you can't work, you know, if something happens to my hand or whatever, and I can't work and can't provide for myself, it'll pay money out or whatever. And then it goes, it covers this, covers cancer, covers this. And I'm like, wait, 1 second, you mean it covers cancer? And they're like, yes, it does. And I'm like, so I had an operation and a treatment a couple of weeks ago. Will it cover that? And they're like, yes, we'll cover that. And I was like, oh, holy shit. So it's taken, I mean, it took about a month. Wait, what are we in now? We're in May. So it's February,
May, yeah.
March, April. So it's taken about 2 months or whatever, 2 or 3 months to get it through. But they've managed to pay back all the money that I've spent on that. And now that money I'm hoping is going to help me pay off a lot of debts that I now owe, but it's also going to be money I'm going to put away for if there's another emergency. And if there's no emergency, maybe I have something for retirement later on, or when I can't work as fast or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all because of like I ended up getting cancer. So like I still think the world, like the universe, works in a really weird freaking way. And like, you know, just losing my job, working on Stray, meeting Jim, doing work in gutters, freaking saving up money, just unexpectedly adulting and getting some kind of policy and all this stuff. It's all sort of been super stressful, but like it seems like there's almost like this weird universal pattern thing that sometimes it'll provide, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you have to put in the work. I don't know. I'm
not religious. I'm not religious, but I feel the same way. Like weirdly,
I'm not religious either. Like it's weird,
but it is weird. Like how, like you'll save up enough money and you think, okay, I'm going to be okay, and then suddenly you need to spend that money, right? Because of reasons, right? And I think there's something really important that you said earlier on that I've been saying a lot lately in this podcast or this show I do with Vito, is that I basically quit comics 2.5 years ago so I could find the joy of making comics again. You know, and I'm not nearly drawing as much as I used to, which is weird. But when I do, I'm trying to enjoy the process more than ever before. So
yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I used to beat myself up saying like, oh, my art's not good enough, and every line needs to be perfect when I'm drawing something. And it's only fairly recently when I've had like these hectic deadlines where I've had to force myself to let go a little bit and trust that like the people that are buying my work want it because it's my work.
And no one, I mean, if anybody's scrutinizing you, they're jerks. Like they like it because they like it. And by the way, look at most comic books drawn from 1930s to now. There's no perfect art in comics. What are you talking about? Like,
no, but that's the thing is like I look back now and you kind of look through that nostalgic eye. But sometimes I can go back to my favorite artists and I look at their pages, and to me in my head, I'm like, I remember this page. This page was amazing. It was perfect. And then I go back and I look at it now and I'm like, oh, you can see that the eyes don't line up exactly.
That's right.
There's a couple of things that are off, and I'm like, oh, it's deadlines, and this is just how they draw. And so like I've cut myself a bit of a break. So if I draw something and it's not perfect, I'm like, is it perfect to go to print? And can I, will the average person be able to see it? Probably not.
Well, I'm trying to figure out a project that will break my hand from. I've never drawn perfect, but will literally make me go into a direction where maybe I'm drawing as fast as you can read it. You know what I'm saying? Like just this shorthand that is comics and is appealing enough, and yet at the end of the day, it's the marriage of words and pictures. So really, you're just conveying story, man. Give me a good story.
As long as you can read what I'm putting down And like the important pages, don't get me wrong, the important pages, like if there's like a really awesome action scene I want to draw, or there's a character reveal that I really want to do well, I will put all the effort into that. But if there's a page that's just that's just like
A to B, A to B. Get to B.
It's just getting from A to B. I won't break myself on that page.
Right,
you know?
right.
100%.
What you
but
got,
it's taken me
Vito?
a long time to cut myself some slack to be able to do that, though.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you earned it. You deserve it.
I just wanted to show everyone the marriage of this podcast episode. Sean's artwork inside and Dean doing the cover. I like.
I love that cover, man. I've got like
thanks.
3 copies now that I refuse to give away to anyone.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, so let's Sean, where can everyone find you online?
Just Google Sean Izaakse and you'll find me. I don't use any other aliases. You'll find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on there as much anymore, but I lurk around. But it's just like most social media is sort of hard to navigate, and I'm like, I enjoy my life too much to kind of see all people just being awful to each other. So I'll hop on, scroll through to see if any of my favorite artists have posted anything that I can like and use for inspiration, and then I'll hop off, play some games, play with my cats, try to get myself to draw, play Dungeons and Dragons with friends, and try and get a little bit of sun so I can be healthier and stuff.
Absolutely. All
right, Dean, let's close it out.
Oh, you gonna flush him down the toilet? Hold on.
Yeah, let's Sean. It is
going to be a thing now on the podcast where you flush the toilet at the end.
Yeah, we always flush our interviews down at the end. Make it just go down easy. You're not going.
So is the interviewee, the poop?
It's going to take 6 hours to get to you, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
All right, here we go. There it is. It goes the way. Yeah, you never hear it on the video, but we put it on the audio. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday night.
Thanks, Sean.
I love you.
Problem, guys. Sorry, I forgot.
You are part of my family. My wife,
I love you guys.
Is one of your friends as well. My daughter, who you watched grow up, is in the other room talking to her friends. So I can't say much about how much I love this guy that we're talking to. So thank you.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Anytime you need anything, let me know, and I'll do my best.
All right, Dean. Yay! Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
Man. Cheers, guys.